hot in here.
Yes, I'm melting.
Watch out!
Shh, over here, look, it's the thing.
Oh, and he's opening the thing.
Oh, you know what that means? Coca-Cola! Check out that view!
Oh, I can taste it already.
Here it comes!
Wow, that hit the spot! Cracking!
No. No. It's horrible.
This looks like a job for
Flash gel with bleach.
like a cream. It clings to stains, but unlike a cream, it cleans with hardly any effort. And the bleach makes sure it's all hygienically clean.
Oh, my hair.
It's a tough job, but someone's got to do it. Flash gel with bleach does the hard work, so you don't have to.
There's only one place to find the best players in the world. The Champions League. As Arsenal and Manchester United prepare to join the elite, join us live and exclusively on Anglia.
On Saturday, a chilling tale for Wycliffe.
How do you explain the contents of your freezer, Mrs. Rule?
Stealing from her.
What business is it of yours how she died?
I'm not going through this on my own.
Don't touch me.
Where is she?
Only between you.
A tangled web for Wycliffe, Saturday at 9:10.
Tonight's Anglia news follows in a couple of minutes. First, the weather forecast.
Hello, good evening. I'm sure most of you will have noticed an improvement in the weather as we've gone through today. It's been largely dry right the way across the region with some sunshine, and we found the temperatures beginning to pick up a little bit after the wet and windy weather of yesterday, and that improvement will carry on right the way through the week. Little by little, it'll become somewhat warmer. Now, yesterday's wet and windy weather has pushed southeast into the continent, leaving us with quite a lot of sunshine to start the day, though some cloud did bubble up for a time, though that is tending to melt away again now. Most of the cloud will stay to the north of us, as you can see it has been today. The reason for the improvement in the weather is the high pressure, which at the moment is still some way out in the Atlantic. We've had these rather blustery west to northwesterly winds through today, but by tomorrow it's got that little bit closer. The isobars have opened out, and because of that I think it will start to feel that bit warmer, with the temperatures maybe a degree or two higher than we've seen today. Then looking even further ahead to Thursday, the high pressure's still there, not too many isobars at all, so I think Thursday should be another fine day with quite a lot of sunshine, though we will find some sea breezes developing to cool things down a bit around the coast. And all the time this frontal system should be held to the north around about the English-Scottish border region. So if we come back to this evening, well, as I said, some sunshine to end the day, the cloud tending to thin and melt away. So as we go into the night, much of the night will be dry with some long clear periods, maybe the odd mist patch late on in the night, because those blustery winds at long last will be dying down a bit. The lowest temperatures around 10 or 11 degrees Celsius there. So tomorrow morning, again, I think a pretty fine start to the day, dry with quite a lot of sunshine. Like today, we'll find the cloud bubbles up as we go through the morning, so a bit more cloud around through the middle part of the day and into the afternoon. But again, like today, it shouldn't produce any showers, and I think perhaps not quite so much cloud as we saw today. So a bit more sunshine, and with a bit more sunshine and those lighter winds, the temperature's getting a little higher as well. The very best perhaps around 23 degrees Celsius, which is 73 Fahrenheit. Light westerly winds, but as I said, perhaps some sea breezes later on. The outlook, well, it's pretty simple really. You can see for a change, no rain on the chart, dry with quite a lot of sunshine, getting particularly, I think, sunny through Friday and Saturday as that warmer air arrives, and really pretty warm then. 28 Celsius is 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Maybe turning just a little bit more cloudy on Sunday and a little more humid as well. And again, watch out for some sea breezes. So to summarise it all for you, it's dry with sunny periods and very warm.
Anglia and Sun Life, helping you plan for tomorrow.
Anglia News, this evening with Kevin Piper and Claire Weller.
Tonight, 200 factory workers escaped the biggest fire in Norfolk for years. The building's wrecked, but what caused the fire?
Set for closure, the training centre for the region's police recruits. 100 jobs could go.
And a crushing blow, the hard-hitting campaign to catch tax disc dodgers.
Hello there, welcome to the programme. We begin with that dramatic fire which destroyed a factory in Norfolk.
It was the biggest fire in the county for years. A poultry processing plant was all but destroyed. It's happened during the night shift at Banham Poultry near Attleborough in South Norfolk. 200 workers escaped from the building, and though they now fear for their jobs, the company says it's planning to switch production to other factories. Our reporter John Francis is at the scene tonight. John.
Yes, hello. Well, there's precious little still remaining, apparently, inside this blackened and indeed still smoking shell of the Banham Poultry plant. More than 400 people normally work here, and they process up to 75,000 chickens every day. Now, with this plant out of action for the foreseeable future, there's an immediate knock-on effect for the company's associated farms, because they are geared up to maintaining that throughput of poultry every day.
Today, the fire investigators have begun their work, along with scenes of crime officers, loss adjusters and structural engineers concerned about the safety of what remains of the factory. It was the biggest fire in Norfolk since the Thetford Plastics factory blaze in 1991. And during the night, up to 200 firefighters and backup units from all corners of Norfolk were drafted in as intense flames and toxic fumes spread unpredictably through insulation cavities. But 200 workers were evacuated safely after the fire was first spotted by a 16-year-old colleague.
They're burning all the plastic trays right at the back. All the trays that they do, and it was touching the roof by the time I was out of there. Then by the time I got into my room, all the black smoke was coming down into the shoes.
The first firefighters on the scene went into the factory to tackle the flames, but as the night wore on, the threat of collapse forced a strategic withdrawal.
For a long time I've had firefighters in the building trying to deal with the fire, but I've now withdrawn everybody for safety reasons. The other difficulty we've got is the lack of water. We're out of Attleborough here, and we've had to run what we call a water relay for some miles into the scene here to give us the additional water.
Among the reinforcements rushed into Attleborough were all three of Norfolk's hydraulic platforms. Holes were smashed in the roof of the factory to let the water in. Staff watched in amazement as their factory burned. They began to realise their jobs could be at risk.
I think everybody here is absolutely gutted. This is my major concern, you know, thinking of my wife and the children and that, you know, there's no money coming in, who's got to support them?
Those fears confirmed this morning when the fire service made a final appraisal of the damage.
The fire's affected about 90% of the main production area, and it probably in total it's affected about 75–80% of the whole plant. The situation this morning is we're damping down because of the stability problems with some of the areas inside and structural collapse. We're having difficulty gaining access into the most central part of the building where the most serious part of the fire was.
We have heard of 1 or 2 people, the factory may be demolished and rebuilt, or they may buy another site, but this is early days to speculate yet.
So everyone very worried?
Very worried. We had a lot of people on overtime here, earning good money, a good company to work for really, and they're devastated at the moment.
But during the day, senior management said they'd begun to make plans to switch production to other factories and keep jobs open.
Well, joining us now here on the site is Dennis Foreman, who's an associate director. So first question, Dennis, does anybody know yet why it started?
Well, we haven't got a clue, John. We're absolutely devastated, as you could imagine. We just don't know what is happening at the moment. We haven't been able to go inside the plant to see what is going on. As soon as we've been given the OK, then obviously we will know a bit more.
I know you have been working very hard all day to try and get production going again somehow. What plans have you got?
Well, we've had great response from our competitors, which is greatly appreciated. But we are looking to do something with a local plant, and hopefully as early as Friday we will be looking to do something. But we will be letting all our employees know through the media tomorrow, which is what's going to happen.
OK, now obviously the question on the minds of all your employees and all your families is what's going to happen to my job? What do you think you can say about that?
There is no problem with the jobs. We've said through the press and the television today that the jobs are safe. We need our employees, we care for our employees, and we are looking to obviously safeguard their futures here.
OK, Dennis Foreman, thank you very much. And with that now, back to the studio.
Thanks, John. Police in Essex say a woman who was thrown out of a car onto a motorway at 60 miles an hour is lucky to be alive. Tonight she's recovering in hospital in Chelmsford. Officers want to speak to her common-law husband who was driving at the time. The incident happened on the M25 between junctions 29 and 30 on Saturday night. This from Timothy Evans.
It's one of the busiest roads in the country. It was here on Saturday night that a woman was thrown onto the carriageway from a moving car. Other vehicles swerved to avoid her as she crawled to the side of the road. Stephanie Rawlings had been travelling back home to Romford with her partner and 4 children. The incident occurred as the car sped along at 60 miles an hour and followed a heated argument.
A row developed in the car to such a degree, I think, that Stephanie actually opened the car door herself. At that point, he threw her out, pushed her, and out she went onto the carriageway while they were still travelling along at speed. Absolute miracle, I think, that she wasn't killed, either by the fall itself or by traffic coming behind them.
Police at South Ockendon in Essex are anxious to speak to Peter Rawlings. They believe he's in the Brighton area, from where he's made a number of calls to family members. Detectives are urging him to contact the incident office in Essex or any police station. Stephanie Rawlings is at the St Andrews Burns Unit, part of Broomfield Hospital in Chelmsford. She's said to be comfortable and is being treated for burns-like injuries caused by extensive grazing. Following the incident on the motorway, the 4 children remained in the car and were dropped off at the home of a relative by Peter Rawlings.
Physically, they're unharmed. They're with a relative, they're safe. What the mental effects of this incident have on them in now or in years to come, I obviously can't say. It must have been truly horrific.
It's been revealed that the couple had actually split up and had been attempting a reconciliation on the day of the argument. An argument which could have resulted in far more tragic consequences. Timothy Evans, Anglia News on the M25.
A 12-year-old boy and 2 adults were rescued by helicopter today during a fishing trip off the Essex coast. It happened 7 miles south of Clacton. When the boat carrying the boy, his father and another man started sinking, they raised the alarm on a mobile phone. This afternoon, the half-submerged vessel was towed in by the Burnham lifeboat. The fishing party had already been plucked to safety by an RAF helicopter from Wattisham in Suffolk. They were taken to hospital with mild hypothermia.
A police training centre in Suffolk could close next year with a loss of up to 100 jobs. Recruits from across the region are taught at the facility, formerly a Royal Navy training base.
New recruits from half a dozen forces, including Suffolk, Norfolk, Essex and Cambridgeshire, experienced the 15-week intensive course at Shotley Gate near Ipswich. It covers all aspects of basic training, including public order and personal safety. There are 6 police training centres around the country. Rationalisation means one must close. Shotley's the prime target. It's an expensive leased site. A final decision's due next month. Staff have little hope of a reprieve.
It's a very good centre, good facilities and good staff. Our problem now is to keep everybody motivated and morale up and to try and hang on to enough staff to keep delivering the curriculum until we eventually do close.
Since its opening in 1986, thousands of police constables have graduated from Shotley. Before them, young naval recruits were trained when this was HMS Ganges. The centre's closure would mean the loss of 100 posts. Most civilian jobs are held by local people.
The police officers are fortunate that they've got the safety net that they can return to their forces and pick up a post in force. But obviously for the civilian staff there is that uncertainty of finding a new job. The Home Office may be able to relocate some of them. And also there's the people that work here as contractors, the housekeeping staff, catering staff, security and maintenance and so on.
If closure's confirmed, the last intake of recruits would be in January. They'd graduate in April. The police training centre would close its gates for good by July next year. Diane Stradling, Anglia News, Shotley.
It's coming up to 21 minutes to 7.
Still to come tonight. How about this for a paint job? You'll need 70 gallons of red and white paint and a bit of a head for heights. The ups and downs of the exterior decorator later in the programme.
But now more of the day's news from around the region. It's county by county.
First to Essex, where firefighters will strike from 10 o'clock tonight, despite news that talks are planned which could solve the long-running dispute. Union leaders are to meet members of the Essex Fire Authority on Thursday, hoping to end the industrial action over budget cuts. Army Green Goddess fire engines will be on standby until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Next to Halesworth, where an electricity substation has sparked a new type of conservation area. After newts were discovered there, the site was cleared and managed with help from the Suffolk Wildlife Trust. Now 10 further substations are to be used to encourage wildlife.
And to Scratby, near Great Yarmouth, where a car once owned by Diana, Princess of Wales, could be leaving for an American museum. The W-Reg Ford Escort was given to the Princess by Prince Charles as an engagement present. 3 years ago, a Norfolk antiques dealer bought the car for £6,000. It's now been sold via the internet for a six-figure sum. And talking of cars, tax yours or it could end up being crushed. That's the stark warning to motorists in Norfolk and Suffolk who are driving around without a tax disc. A tough campaign to catch the cheats has been launched in Great Yarmouth, and just to show they mean business, the DVLA's car crusher obligingly ate 4 cars.
Forget one of these and you could end up with one of these. Over the next few weeks, teams of wheel clampers will be out looking for unlicensed cars, and if you're caught, it's an expensive mistake. The bill to release a car could run into hundreds, and at the very worst, the phrase compact car takes on a whole new meaning.
What we're talking about here is something which is against the law. We are losing an awful lot of money by way of road tax. But there are other reasons as well in this. I mean, we're talking frequently about unroadworthy and uninsured vehicles.
According to figures from the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Agency, there are 53,000 cars in Norfolk and Suffolk without tax discs, which adds up to almost £6 million in lost revenue. The police have also joined the campaign.
We'll be targeting our intelligence towards the national contractors in relation to vehicles that are not only unlicensed but we suspect to be unroadworthy.
The checks in the post or I've lost my tax disc won't cut any ice with the car crusher, which has eaten more than 50% of cars impounded so far. The DVLA says the campaign is necessary to protect the honest tax-paying drivers. Those who evade the law will have their cars converted into minis in just 4 minutes. Stephen Lee, Anglia News, Great Yarmouth.
Well, after checking his own tax disc, no doubt, Stephen Lee now joins us in the newsroom. Steve, it's all a bit drastic, isn't it? Crushing cars?
Well, it's a very dramatic threat, but one that seems to work so far. It's been trialled in other areas of the country. So far, the DVLA have clamped something in the region of 5,000 cars, and most people at that point decide to pay up. It's only if you don't then pay the fine for being clamped that your car goes on to be crushed. And as you can imagine, most people want to pay up and don't want to see their car go into the clamper.
So it's fair to say it will be effective, this scheme?
Well, it's effective so far as much as it's raised something in the region of £11.6 million that wouldn't have come in otherwise from road fund duty. And also it's got rid of a lot of unwanted or unroadworthy cars that were driving along on the road and which police say really shouldn't have been there in the first place. OK,
Steve, thanks very much. You have been warned.
Indeed, scary stuff. Well, it's that time of year when the garden looks lovely, the hanging baskets are up and the flowers are blooming.
But what of the winter months when the colour fades and the flower beds look forlorn? Well, now with a bit of expert advice, you can keep colour all year round.
Writer and nurseryman Adrian Bloom from Bressingham in Norfolk has produced a book that can make us all a little bit more green-fingered.
It's called Foggy Bottom and it's in Bressingham, an enchanting name for a garden, and it's an example of what you can achieve. It's hard to believe that this was once a meadow, but now with over 3,000 species of trees, plants and flowers, it's been transformed. Nurseryman Adrian Bloom is the man who did it, and now he's written a book to tell those of us, even with the smallest of gardens, how to have an interesting, colourful garden all the year round.
The smaller the garden, the more important it is, of course, to choose a selection of plants that's going to give as long a period of interest as possible. This is one of my favourite grasses, long name, Stipa tenuissima, but you can see how it's blowing in the wind. It's a wonderful plant which looks good now when it's in flower and then goes to beige and looks good all the winter too. Well, now here's a combination for year-round interest with a conifer. This is one of the dwarf blue spruce, Pysopungens globosa, next to a winter-flowering heather with pink flowers, but it's golden all the year, so the combination of those two looks great all the year round. This is a great hardy perennial. It's a variegated Jacob's ladder called Brise d'Anjou, which gives summer-long interest because of its variegated foliage and nice blue flowers too.
And here is a small garden that has benefited from a bit of expert advice from Adrian Bloom. It's 20 feet by 20 feet and was once just a patch of grass.
There's over 80 different varieties in this garden, and therefore you get that change with the seasons, new things coming out and other things going over, but the grasses always look good through the winter, as do many of the other plants.
The secret is to plan and plant, so the view is forever changing. So if you want to make the most of your garden, you could take a few tips from Foggy Bottom. Rebecca Atherstone, Anglia News, Bressingham.
Good old Foggy Bottom. Right, still ahead on Anglia News. The countdown to the football season continues. We shall look at another of our club's chances.
Plus, we've some very rare pictures. This is something not captured on film for half a century. The baby bitterns they're hoping will save the bird from extinction. That's next.
Sunsweet prunes, and now Sunsweet prune juice, 100% pure juice. Try Sunsweet. Enjoy life feeling good.
Introducing an advanced painkiller for people who don't have time for pain. New Nurofen Advance. It's different because it has a specially developed formula. This speeds absorption into the body. It targets pain fast, so pain can't slow you down. New Nurofen Advance. Rapidly absorbed to target pain fast.
Real tasty meat, so good to eat, that butcher's tribe's our favourite. What a wonderful feeling it is to be as fit as a butcher's dog.
Buy one pack of American-style fries. Get one free right now at your local Summerfield.
Looks like we'll have to have fries for dinner.
Now then, if the idea of repainting your front room fills you with dread, spare a thought for two men doing a spot of redecorating in North Norfolk. They've been given the challenge of repainting one of the county's most famous landmarks, all 84 feet of it, inside and out.
Think of Haysborough and you think of the lighthouse. It's guided sailors around a treacherous stretch of coastline since 1791 with its familiar red and white stripes. But now it's not so much red and white as grey as work gets underway to give it a fresh coat of paint, a painstaking job being done by hand. It's the first time this century that the paintwork has been stripped back completely and redone. It'll take at least 6 weeks to complete, but that doesn't faze one of the men doing it, who spent much of his life, paintbrush in hand, halfway up a lighthouse.
This one is in a bad state actually, and it wants stripping off, which we are doing now. We're needle gunning all the old paint off, and then just the easy part's the painting. This is the hard part, taking it all off.
The lighthouse was last painted for the BBC's Challenge Annika programme in 48 hours from start to finish. But since then, paint has been flaking off in large chunks, so the Lighthouse Trust called in the decorators.
It is a navigational aid, so the red and white stripes have to be there because that's the day marker. It's taken us 12 months to get to the stage we're at now, because you've got to go through various organisations, research into what is underneath the paint, and of course we've got to comply with the conservation architect because it is a listed building.
Haysborough Lighthouse was due to be closed, but in 1990 it was taken over by local people who formed an independent lighting authority. It's the last surviving lighthouse from an original pair at Haysborough. The other one fell victim to the sea many years ago. The recent good weather has helped speed along the work on the outside of the building, but if it rains, there's plenty to do on the inside as well. Stephen Lee, Anglia News, Haysborough.
Wow, that's a challenge for you. Well, time now for the sport, and it was a good night for, not a good night for Norwich last night, but good news today.
Better today on the international front, you'll be pleased to hear. Yep, more on that in just a moment, but it's cricket first, and Essex will be without their two star players for tomorrow's county championship match against the title holders Glamorgan at Chelmsford. Vice-captain Nasser Hussain is away on test duty. The Aussie batsman Stuart Law has a shoulder injury, but Essex are hoping that skipper Paul Pritchard and the all-rounder Ronnie Irani will be fit after a flying visit to a specialist injury clinic in Munich in Germany. Norwich City's hopes of a much-needed pre-season boost ahead of Saturday's Football League kick-off were dashed at Carrow Road last night. Leicester City, managed by the former Canary boss Martin O'Neill, won the friendly with the only goal of the game. There was little at Carrow Road last night to whet the 7,500 fans' appetite for the 9-month campaign ahead. Even Tony Cotty's 10th-minute winner for the Foxes was a rather scrappy affair, in keeping with a generally uninspiring match. Leicester City should have been 2 up on 28 minutes. Emil Heskey's header, though, rather harshly ruled out for pushing. And when Norwich City did show the odd spark, it invariably came from Darren Eadie. A shot against the post, the best effort from the Canaries' most valuable asset. The second most valuable is almost certainly Craig Bellamy, and he almost wriggled through in the closing stages. Victory, though, went to the side managed by Martin O'Neill, but the man who dramatically walked out of Carrow Road 3 years ago reckons the Canaries do have an outside chance of promotion this season. Yes, let's hope he's right. 3 players from Ipswich and Norwich have been included in England's training squad, announced a little earlier today. Goalkeeper Richard Wright and the midfielder Kieran Dyer of Ipswich and Norwich City's Darren Eadie, just featured there, are among the 29 players earmarked for England's European Championship qualifying matches. Part 2 of our preview of the new football season now, and no one will go into the new campaign in better spirits than Colchester United, who were promoted out of the bottom division for the first time in 17 years. Can they survive? Richard Henwood assesses their chances.
For clubs up and down the country, pre-season's a time for positive thinking, and at Colchester there's plenty to be positive about. For the friendly against Charlton, they and their opponents showed off last season's silverware, trophies for promotion. In Colchester's case, it was promotion to the second division.
The hard work starts now, doesn't it? We're in probably the strongest second division in many years, in probably, I think, the strongest in its history. The likes of Manchester City, Stoke and Fulham now spending £1 million on players or whatever. It's going to be very difficult for us, but I'm looking forward to it.
Division 2 represents unknown territory for some Colchester players, taking on clubs with big reputations who have supporters with high expectations and grounds that are the envy of some Premiership sides.
Some of these players haven't played any higher than third division yet, so it's a great test for them, and we don't really know how they're going to react till we get there.
No disrespect to the teams in the third division, but you look at the difference in quality at the moment. I think the second division on paper is probably the best it has been for a long time, and for us to be in it is just a bonus.
It was a very nice surprise actually looking at the fixture list, and two of the lads, it'll be the first time a place is out Main Road and Stoke City's new ground, so you know, we're looking forward to it and hopefully we'll have a good season.
Geraint Williams, of course, has played at the highest level of English football. Now, though, he's arrived at Layer Road after 6 seasons with Ipswich, this one of his rare goals. He'll add much-needed experience.
I've never been a sort of player who likes to sit around in the reserves too often, and I think that would have probably been the case this year at Ipswich, and I'm far happier playing first-team games, hopefully here at Colchester.
So much optimism, but while memories of last season's playoff final are still fresh in the minds of the fans, they know a new challenge awaits in Division 2.
Certainly does. Good luck for that challenge too. It's Southend United who come under the spotlight tomorrow, and a little bird tells me there might just be an important Norwich City story too, so stay tuned. Kevin.
Thank you, Richard. Little bird. He's looking ahead, you know. He's looking ahead because Britain's most endangered native bird, the bittern, could be about to make a comeback.
Not long ago, experts feared it would be extinct within a few years, but a successful breeding season at the RSPB Reserve at Minsmere in Suffolk has given the species a real chance of survival.
And in this exclusive report, we followed bittern experts as they tagged and measured 4 fledglings. The RSPB say it's the first time such young birds have been filmed near their nest for half a century. Rebecca Atherstone reports.
The RSPB Nature Reserve at Minsmere. It's here that hopes rest on the bittern fighting back from the brink of extinction. Their numbers are still alarmingly low, but there was a time when almost all hope had gone. Things got so bad that in 1991 there was only 1 male bittern on the Minsmere Reserve. Since then, however, there's been a remarkable turnaround. This year, these reed beds became home to 2 male bitterns and 5 nesting females. There is just one nest remaining where the young have not yet flown.
It's the 6th nest we've had here, which is a record since we've been recording. And we're going in to see how the young are doing, to ring them, weigh them, measure them, see what they've been eating. And if we're lucky, we might even be able to radio tag one of them so we can follow what happens to it when it's left the nest.
What wasn't known until this year is that one female can successfully nest twice. She has already reared 3 young. This is her second family. It was at first feared the smallest chick might have died, but all is well and the measuring and radio tagging can be done whilst the female is away gathering food.
We regularly monitor them while they're in the nest to make sure they're all still alive. And then once they fledge and start moving around, we follow their movements. So when they stay at Minsmere, we find out exactly what kind of habitat they're using.
Much of the success of the bittern at Minsmere has been due to intensive reed bed management. One of the main problems of past years is that the reed bed dried out and the bird could not survive.
Bitterns, we found, do not like dry reed beds. So now, a lot of areas have been lowered, thus raising the water level, allowing the reed bed to regenerate.
This has been the answer. It has brought 50% of the entire female bittern population to Minsmere. 10 of their young have successfully flown. These 4 have yet to spread their wings. When they do, it's hoped that next March the sound of the bittern booming in East Anglia may just be heard a little more often. Rebecca Atherstone, Anglia News, Minsmere.
What a strange call.
Yes,
Gosh.
that is its call. There we are. Learn something every day, don't you?
Certainly do. Right, time for the weather. Despite a rather blustery wind and some patchy cloud, temperatures have reached 21 Celsius, 70 degrees Fahrenheit in Long Stratton this afternoon. And gradually, over the next few days, the temperatures will rise further. The night will be dry with some long, clear periods and a few mist patches. Tomorrow will continue dry with further sunshine at times and feeling warmer in the lighter winds. And the outlook for Thursday, staying dry with long sunny periods, oh there you are, and very warm.
Just before we go, apologies for the lack of subtitles on teletext page 888. We'll try and have them back for you tomorrow night, but for tonight, that's it. Good night.
Good night.
Shattered dreams for Will and devastating news for Chris and Zoe in Emmerdale. Next.